Hello and welcome. Here is a podcast just for you, where every day I'm teaching you something new about how to be the best version of yourself so you can be an inspiring visionary for everyone else. I'm showing up to guide you through some things that you may have often overlooked, such as how to strengthen your mindset without having to read a book. In a world where everyone's focus is on what everyone else is up to, I'm hoping I can help you slow life down so you can focus on what you can do. The world needs more people to believe in what they see and to have visions beyond diagnoses with a focus on possibility. So, I'm asking that as you listen in, please open up your mind. And together, let's see all the ways we can make better what we find. This is a podcast about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's also about my experiences with exclusion. And it is my hope that in each episode, you're able to connect with me. And when we leave the conversation, I hope you are forever committed to the cause. See me, not ASD. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to episode 4 of See Me, Not ASD, the podcast. I'm your host, Devika Carr. As we continue this journey in quarter 1, discussing awareness through honesty, this week's topic is evaluating societal expectations based on norms, barriers, and possibilities. Our question to you is this: have you ever been labeled or recognized a label given to you? And have you felt societal judgments as a result of those labels? Our segment goal is simply to open up your thought process, to allow you to notice what is going on in society around you and how people are affected by judgments, but to also offer you a solution to approaching those judgments. We believe that if you focus on possibilities as opposed to focusing on limitations that are given based on labels, then you have a better opportunity to succeed and to achieve based on your own disciplines. So my first experience with labels actually happened when I was a kid. And as opposed to being called by my first name, I was often referred to as the white girl. As you can see, based on my skin tone, I am not of Caucasian a race. That doesn't mean that I couldn't be mixed, but for many of you who know me, I am mixed, but not with being white. And as I dug deeper into, I would ask these kids, like, why are you calling me that? And the response would always be one of a few things. It was either that I spoke too white for them or that I acted white, whatever that means. And they perceived me as thinking I was better than I was or better than them. That's never the case. That was never the case. And when I really evaluated what it meant to speak white or act white, it really came down to the way that I articulated words, the way that I read, the way that I spoke, the way that I dressed, perhaps. But I didn't know anything different. I was just being me. And yet that label of being a white girl, it made me feel low. It made me feel like I had done something wrong, like I couldn't be who I wanted to be, who I was, without feeling as if someone was going to judge me, as if someone was going to dislike me. And for a long time, I did not have friends who looked like me. Many of my friends were white. I also grew up in a small town where my neighborhood was mostly made up of Caucasian people. I did not grow up around a lot of ethnic backgrounds. That doesn't mean, however, that I didn't know what diversity was, that I didn't grow up understanding diversity. And so I think that really shaped my understanding of inclusion and diversity early on, especially because I recognize diversity as being more than just being black or white. Whereas I think many people around me were still focused only on race, only on ethnicity, only on color. So the societal norms that were associated with that experience had me wondering, what would the rest of my life be like? Would I continue going on through to adulthood, being labeled as the white girl? Would that be something that would follow me around? Would I ever just be seen to other people as Devika for whatever makes me exceptional? The fact that I enjoy art, the fact that I enjoy speaking, the fact that I enjoy working with others. Were those going to be the highlights of my existence, or are people always going to focus on the labels of what I was? And now, as I've aged, the experience of labels has grown deeper. It extends to more deeper contexts, and particularly as a parent, I recall, and I'll speak more about this experience in a few weeks when I share the story in greater detail, but I recall sitting in a room with a stranger with my 3-year-old firstborn son, and he was given this label. Oh yeah, your son has autism spectrum disorder, and if Asperger's was still the diagnosis, that's probably what he would be. It was very offhandedly given. There was no emotion attached to it. It was just, here's what he is, and good luck. And I remember thinking, whenever I would be prompted to discuss my son's medical diagnosis, I could immediately feel the judgments associated with it by other people, based on body language, based on tone of voice. It's almost as if when people hear, oh, your son's on the spectrum, it's like a surprise. And some people feel, well, I don't know how they feel, but their tone of voice, their body language makes me feel like they aren't sure if they should feel sorry for me, feel supportive of me, or change nothing about how they feel, right? So sometimes what happens is when there's a label associated with our existence, our being, we question in one of a few ways what we should do next. Should this label allow me to be less than? Should this label make me more than? Or will this label do nothing? Will it just allow me to remain the same? And the effect of a label in our society is different for everyone based on where you are in your journey of understanding and awareness. The norm that I have discovered in the ways that I have studied societal norms in concentrated efforts, the consistent theme I have found has been that people will shape their ideas and their experiences based on social interactions with one another and the depths of their meaningful relationships with one another and their concerted efforts for understanding. What does that mean? It means that most people develop their ideas based on what they know about one another, based on how they interact with one another on a daily basis, whether it's someone close to them or someone they've just met in a coffee shop interaction or a run-in at the grocery store or whatever the daily activities that we all engage in. So my understanding of norms is that we develop our beliefs about what is normal based on those interactions. So if you usually go to the grocery store and, the process is you pick up your groceries, you go to the cash out line, you put it on the belt, the person scanning it, you either greet them or you don't, depending on what kind of person you are. They either speak to you kindly or they don't, depending on what kind of person they are. You develop an understanding about what customer service is. You develop an understanding about what you think that interaction should look like and be like. And then that's how you continue to go to the grocery store, right? So typically, once you've developed your understanding of an interaction and how the norms are for a particular situation, that's how you will continue to be. Much like a hamster on a wheel. You're familiar, you've done it, you know what to expect. So you keep doing it that way. I think as a society, we learn and we disengage for a couple of reasons. We either learn because of our focus on connecting with one another, or we disengage because we have a desire to detox from connection. So, what happens when we make these conscious decisions? Do we develop a process for weeding out the things that make us feel connected and the things that don't? Or are we stuck in the unconscious where we've just kind of accepted societal norms and we just go through the motions? The barriers to growth in society, in my opinion, are rooted in our unwillingness to have a process, to commit to a process that requires consciousness, that requires dedication, and that requires constant reflection. So when we're aware of the norms and how our lives and our actions are shaped by the things that we are used to based on previous interactions and experiences, when we're conscious of those norms and aware of them, do we have a process for reflecting on them and then asking ourselves, what about it should be different? What about it would we like to be different? And then having the dedication to achieve the different, right? To become the betterment we seek. Do we have the dedication to invest in ourselves to make that change? To change what becomes our own norm, as opposed to just the norm that society has told us we should adopt. I think it's a very deep process to go through, and it's not something that happens overnight. But if you're aware and you're honest about how you've really come to be who you are, and you really take the time to reflect about the norms that you've adopted for your own life, whether it's your actions as a parent, have you come to be that kind of parent based on what you believe to be normal in society? Or did you consciously choose to be that kind of parent based on the things that are important to you? And you can then apply this to every other role that you carry. Are you intentional? Are you conscious? Are you aware of how you are as an employee, how you are as a boss, how you are as an entrepreneur, how you are as an athlete? Did you develop the ways in which you are because you consciously chose to be that way? Or did you develop those things based on your experiences and interactions with others that then became your norms based on society, right? And now there's no judgment as to which way is the right way. Should you be like what's normal in society, quote unquote? Should you be constantly choosing on your own what to be? This isn't a judgment process. This is simply me asking you to notice, to really consider, how have you been living? How have you been labeled? How have you allowed societal norms and barriers to impact who you are? Now, most discussions, in my opinion, communications, and targeted media focus on the things that are wrong, or the problem, or the pain points, right? You'll typically hear in a lot of, I guess, like motivational guidance for entrepreneurs in particular, just based on the things I have read and listened to. There's always this, well, if you're trying to reach a certain kind of person and get them to do a certain kind of thing, you have to focus on what their pain point is. And for example, autism, many of the organizations that have become prominent in the autism community have been autism related, right? So autism awareness, autism speaks. Those are just a couple of examples. But what happens is the focus is on the autism, as if the individuals being served and being helped and loved and supported are secondary. And that has always bothered me. It bothered me well before I had a child on the spectrum. And now that I have a child on the spectrum, it bothers me even more. Which is part of the reason when my son was 4 years old, I came up with this idea and said, hey, write down see me not ASD. Because in my mind, that, like, if I were him, that's what I would be saying. Like, hey, can you see me instead of seeing the diagnosis? Could you just see me for who I am as opposed to seeing autism spectrum disorder? Like, whoa, it was profound. And I'm like, yeah, every kid should be proudly standing up and saying, see me, not any specialized difference, any significant difference, any specialized disability diagnosis, right? That's where ASD became this evolution of more than just autism spectrum disorder, more than just the diagnosis. It really applies to everything, but not to get off track. The point is, I hated, and I still hate, that the prevalence in our society, the norm right now, is to focus on the problem, to focus on the pain point, to focus on the one thing that maybe we didn't ask for. And I get it. There are organizations that are successful, that are serving others well, that are targeting their markets to the people who are experiencing those specific pain points and problems. But what if there was a culture shift? What if the norm became a focus on exceptionalities first, as opposed to what is wrong? What is not yet the majority in our society, what is not yet the norm, is a focus on alternative methods of understanding. And I think if that were to happen, which is what we are hoping this community can help facilitate, all of a sudden there's a strengthening, right? In the correlation between seeing exceptional, seeing with an exceptional focus first, and then being able to act as a visionary in all other aspects of your life to achieve fulfillment. So the focus is no longer on the problem, but now the focus is on the exceptionalities and the possibilities rather, that exist. And then from there, when you focus that way, it's an exceptional focus to have. But when you do it, now all of a sudden, everything becomes visionary. It's like you become a visionary as a parent. You become a visionary as an individual. You become an individual who has vision in everything they do. Now, I'm not saying you're going to be 5-star at everything, but I am saying that having exceptional focus and being a visionary means that now the possibilities for you to achieve something great in all aspects of your life becomes profound. So what supports are needed to cultivate the kind of energy that makes positive impact? What kind of supports are needed to cultivate the kind of energy required to make positive impact? Well, if you've been listening into this podcast, you know that we believe you first must be aware of what is going on, who you are, where you're living, what environment you're placing yourself in, and you've got to be honest. Awareness through honesty. So the first support you need is understanding, having a place to go to understand these maybe very deep concepts for some people. Maybe some people don't even think past their normal day, right? But that's the norm. That's the societal norm you're falling into. The exceptional way of living is to dig a little deeper. Not saying every conversation that you have has to be a deep one, but what if you just had a thought? What if you were aware? And what if you were honest? What if you evaluate things like this? How can it change your life? How can it change your journey? How can it give you the energy that you need in order to make positive impact? Because isn't that what living is? Sure, maybe you aren't on a large stage, making movies or gaining 17,000 followers in a day or reaching out to millions of people around the world. But what if positive impact is just something that you do daily for everyone and everywhere you go? What if every single person in the world focused on their own energy so that they could bring positive impact to everyone that they touch and everything that they touch? Would that create the kind of culture shift that we might like to see? Perhaps. So the call to action this week is this. I'm asking you to consider, in what ways have you been labeled? I've been labeled as a white girl. I've been labeled as a Black woman. I've been labeled as a mom to a child with a disability diagnosis. I've been labeled as a lawyer. I have been labeled as a super mom. That one makes me feel emotional, actually. I've been labeled as someone who always succeeds at everything she does. Each of these labels has given me a different emotion, a different feeling, a different set of societal norms and expectations and barriers. And each of them carries with it possibilities for growth and also limitations if the label is adopted as it is given. Now, it's overwhelming. I've had a rough week. It is overwhelming to have to consider all the ways and all the roles that I play. What's going on? It's exhausting to take the time to look at every aspect of my life that I'm living and say, what do I notice here? Am I aware of what's going on? How did I come to be this kind of parent, this kind of lawyer, this kind of person? Did I do that because I chose that? Or did I do that because society made me feel that was what was required? Or that was the next step? But by being dedicated to this process, every day I'm becoming better at all the ways I'm broken. Because sometimes being broken means that I've adopted societal norms too often. I've allowed societal influences to tell me what my life should look like, how I should be living, as opposed to me just having my own thought process, my own process of dedication, and me telling myself, no, I want to be like this because I want that. Now, sure, I'm sitting here telling you all sorts of things, but I'm not asking you to believe what I believe. I'm not asking you to adopt my beliefs and to adopt my system as your own. I'm simply asking you to listen, and if you hear something that is true for you, then take the time to invest in it for yourself. And maybe, just maybe, you can help highlight what's exceptional about others and improve on the lives of everyone you meet to make a positive impact in everything you touch. And if that's a possibility that you appreciate, then maybe this process is for you. Yeah? Are you committed to seeing beyond the labels that you've been given? How have you confronted the barriers that the labels you've been given put up in your life? And are you living for the possibilities, or are you living for the limitations? Now, as you ask yourself all these questions, if your answer is no, ask yourself why. Without judgment, just consider why. The creative connection this week is another quote from the Aeronauts movie that we told you about a few weeks ago. It's a great film. Hopefully you've been able to check it out. You don't change the world simply by looking at it. You change it through the way you choose to live in it. Now, the irony here is this podcast is called See Me, Not ASD, right? So we are asking you to change the world by the way that you see it. But we believe that once you see it, that when you choose to live in it differently, that is the choice that makes all the difference. And the mantra this week, I choose to live in a world where I am aware of the way things are. I am fearless to change what I feel is necessary. And I know my contributions are valuable. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of See Me, Not ASD. Thank you for joining. Until next time. You've just listened to See Me, Not ASD, the podcast, with your host, Devika. Thank you for joining. Please connect with us beyond this week's episode so we can continue the conversation. We hope that you'll have time to visit our website, seemenotasd.com, where you'll discover show notes, bonus content, be able to sign up for access to our other resources, and submit any questions, comments, or topic ideas. But if you're currently multitasking while watching or listening to this podcast and you're not able to get to the website right now, we simply ask that you remember us on Instagram, See Me Not ASD. We have some bonus content that we've bookmarked for you, easy access, and you'll be able to get started. We believe we are the #1 source for inspiring visionary supporters around the world so that they can elevate the exceptional people in the world as well, in the pursuit of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, as you meet individuals, see them for the exceptional people that they are and do your best to elevate that.